Great. Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Gimli Film Festival live stream. I'm Carol Whiteman, and I'll be moderating the panel today. We would like to acknowledge that the Gimli Film Festival resides on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We are privileged to be able to live, work, and play on this ancestral land. And I want to acknowledge that I am actually in Vancouver right now, which is traditional Coast Salish lands and the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And I'm grateful to be able to live and be here as a settler on this land. I was actually originally born in the Mohawk territories of the Bay of Quinte. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in to meet the creators today and to be part of this discussion with the team behind the feature film, The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open. And before we get going, I want to just take a moment to note that this panel is brought to you through the collaboration of an effort between the Gimli Film Festival and Women in the Director's Chair, which I'm a co-creator and president and CEO of the initiative Women in the Director's Chair. And I want to let you know that the panel is being recorded and will be streamed through Gimli Film Festival's Gimli Film Festival live stream and available on their Facebook page later on. So as part of this panel, we're encouraging those who are watching from home to engage with our guests by asking questions and leaving comments in the live chat, which you can find at the bottom of the screen below this video. And now I'm going to get things started and introduce our guests, and I will field questions as we go along. I have lots of questions myself, but I'd like this to be a conversation and to be kind of collaborative and fun. And so I invite our panelists and guests to ask each other questions, and let's just have a conversation. I'll call on you so that the audio goes as smoothly as possible, but let's make this as natural as it can be. So what I'd like to do is invite each of you to introduce yourselves and to self-locate where you are and share about what your role was in the film. And then we'll just dive right into the Q&A. So shall we start with you, Maya? Can you just introduce yourself and let us know all of those things?
Sure. Hi, my name's Edlamaya Tailfeathers. I am Blackfoot from Kainai, or the Blood Reserve. It's part of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and that's where I am right now. I'm at my mom's home, my mom's house on the reserve, and my niece, who's named Isla Sophia, is here distracting me. So I think I might step outside. But yeah, I'm the co-writer, co-director of The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, and I play Isla.
Fantastic. Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Kathleen, could you?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Hepburn, living here on the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. I was the co-writer and co-director of the film, and I'm here with my partner.
I'm Tyler Hagen. I was one of the producers of the film, and I'm Métis and settler ancestry, and also, of course, here on the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh ancestral and unceded territory. I think that's about it.
Yeah, thank you. Laurie?
Hi, I'm Laurie. I'm also a producer on the film. I currently am residing on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I had all my forming years. I'm of settler descent, and I formed in Treaty 6 in northern Alberta.
Fantastic. And Violet?
Hi, I'm Violet Nelson. I'm from Quetzino and also Honduras. And I'm living in Surrey, which is the Keatses, Semiami, and Kwantlen people.
Welcome. Thank you. And thank you all for agreeing to be part of this conversation. I'm so excited to be sharing this with the Gimli Film Festival, where The Body Remembers screened as part of the opening night screenings and is available throughout the festival now. I also want to acknowledge that Kathleen and Lori are alumni of the Women in the Director's Chair program, so I'm doubly proud. And Tyler, by virtue of producing the film Never Steady, Never Still, which Kathleen won the WIDC Feature Film Award. So we're kind of kindred in many ways. So I'm doubly proud to be here as part of this conversation. So let's just dive right in. We had a pre-conversation, and one of the things I love to ask is, what do you love about storytelling, and what drew you to this story? So I'm going to start with you, Maya. What do you love about storytelling, and where did this story come from for you?
Well, that's a tough question. I guess what I love about storytelling is that stories exist in all of us and have since the beginning of time, and it's a way to relate to one another. Stories carry knowledge, and stories carry love and spirit. And this film was inspired by an experience that I had in the same neighborhood where we shot the film. So like Isla in the film, I encountered a young woman who had just fled her partner who had assaulted her. And because I was in a more stable position in my life, I thought that I had the capacity to help her, and very quickly learned that I was incredibly naive, and also learned so much about the fact that the resources and services that are available for women who are fleeing intimate partner violence are so few and far between, and under-resourced, and at capacity. So yeah, so that's where this film came from. It was kind of an opportunity to honor this young woman's story, who I never saw again, and to also honor that experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Kathleen, how did the story come to you? Can you talk a little bit about that, and what you love about storytelling in general?
Yeah, I think for me, what storytelling is really, what is so powerful about it is that it's an opportunity for us to sort of experience emotion in a way that we don't normally do in our day-to-day lives. Like, it gives us the time and the space to sort of feel things. And I think so much of our time is spent not feeling, and just getting through the day and trying to make it through life, but allowing ourselves to sort of sit with someone else's experience and see the world through. I think we're having some echo. Does someone have their mic not on mute?
Yeah, we're experiencing a slight audio problem. Could everyone please mute? Okay, I will mute. So
Yeah, is that better? I think that sounds better. Yeah, so just having that time and space to experience and to process emotion and allow ourselves to feel sad or happy or whatever it is in the moment. I think that's so important about storytelling. And for this story in particular, I think it was very clear to me when Maya approached me and Tyler with the original experience that she went through, and talked about how she wanted to create a film out of this to honor this experience. There was just so much complexity and so much beauty to the story, and it seemed like such an important exploration of humanity and friendship and relationship, but also trauma and all of this complex history that we have in this country. And it was just so layered and so complex and beautiful. And that's what really, I think, drew me. And also having an opportunity to work with Maya, who's a big inspiration.
well, now that we're talking about that collaboration or that inspiration, could you talk a little bit about that that collaboration and how that started to evolve? Maya, can you start?
Sure. I am also inspired by Kathleen and her work, which is why I reached out to Kathleen. I hadn't directed a narrative feature before. A lot of my directing experience was with documentary, but I have collaborated quite a few times before, and I find the process of collaboration to be so enriching because you're bringing two hearts and two minds together. And I felt that in making this film, a real-time film, it would be very technically challenging. And I wanted to be able to learn from someone who had the experience that Kathleen has. And again, I respect and admire and am inspired by Kathleen's work. And so I knew that in collaborating with her, it would only serve to make this film a much richer film. So I reached out to her and asked if she wanted to come on board to co-write and co-direct. And that's how my relationship started with Kathleen and Tyler. And then we knew we wanted to work with Laurie, so we reached out to Laurie, and that's how it happened.
Fantastic. Now, I had an order of questions, but I have an instinct to just go straight to Tyler in terms of that progression of collaboration, and ask you and then Laurie to talk a little bit about your what drew you to the story, and kind of if you could give us a sense of the kind of work that you're interested in doing, vis-a-vis that question about what you love about storytelling. Tyler?
Yes, so that's a great question. And I think, my response is fairly similar to Kathleen's. Like when Almaya told us about this experience that she had had and that she wanted to turn it into a film, I was, very much moved by the story itself, and knew the importance that it could have in terms of being a story that's, brought to as wide an audience as we could get it to, and how important it would be for Canadians to see this, but even more so for Indigenous women themselves, to be able to see themselves reflected on screen, and not only their trauma, which we often see, but also their friendship, their humor, their their liveliness. And that was something that really drove the process of making the film itself. I think that we kind of as a group made a really concerted effort to try our best to to serve the community and the people of which the film was about. So that was like a huge inspiration. Obviously, I'd produced Kathleen's film previously, and I had worked with Almaya a little bit, not in the producing capacity though. So it was a really big, kind of exciting project to get to collaborate with Almaya and with Laurie, and eventually with Violet, which has been the big cherry on top of this whole project. And yeah, so I think that I don't want to go on too long, but the film is incredibly representative of the types of projects that I want to do and that we want to do. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. Laurie, can go.
That's great. Thank you. And I just wanted to shout out to your company, Experimental Forest. That's the company name. That's where audience can go and find out more about what you do.
Yep.
And Laurie, can you talk a little bit about your film company and what drew you into the project and this kind of collaboration?
Yeah. I think, I knew everyone but Violet until this experience. I knew a little bit. I had worked with Maya a little bit on one of her short documentaries, and I'd worked with Tyler and Kathleen on Never Steady, Never Still a little bit, and I was incredibly grateful to be asked to join this team because, again, this, like Tyler said, this story is something that just demanded to be seen, which kind of ties into like the type of stories that I want to put out in the world and work with people to put out in the world. And my love of storytelling comes from kind of similar to everybody else. It's like I do think all of us are inherent storytellers, and it's how we bond through compassion and love, and getting to know each other better through our stories. So to me, it's a real connection piece, and I feel incredibly privileged to have to make a life out of storytelling. And these are a lot of the films that I've produced and will continue to produce and write and direct are kind of they're almost based on real life. A number of my films have been inspired by true events, and I feel like that's really important to me, is to bring those stories to wider audiences, and so just to continue those connections around the world. And my company, Violator Films, that's the mandate, and it's really about female creatives and female stories, and it's the stories of real people and real women. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Lori. And now I'd like to chat with you, Violet, a little bit about how you came to the project and the story about your connection to the role, and because I know there's a bit of a story around that. Could you share about that, Violet? How you came to the project?
How I came to the project? Well, I was told about the film by a mutual friend with Maya and myself, and she messaged me saying, "Hey, can you let other girls that are Indigenous between this age know about the film, and that there's like an open part for the lead role?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And she's like, "If you want to go for it as well, go ahead." And I was like, "No, I'm okay, but I'll let other girls know about it." And so I did, and then I told my mom about it, and she was like, "Why not? Just go for it. Like, you never know. It's a yes or no." And then I was like, "Okay, fine." Like, she just wouldn't leave me alone about it. And so I went for it, and then I started to get more interested in the part because I really connected to her, because my mom went through something similar to Rosie. She was in an abusive relationship when I was a kid, so I witnessed that, and that had me more connected to Rosie and understand her thoughts and why she did things. And then I also connect to her because I went through foster care for a bit of my childhood, and so yeah, my mom's no longer in that relationship, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And can you, I'm starting to see a stream of questions here. While I have you on the hot seat, Violet, we have some folks who are interested in how you prepared for the role and what the rehearsal process was like. And then I have another question about the song, the lullaby. So can you talk a little bit about preparing for the role and getting into it?
Yeah. So during rehearsals, I can't even remember how long we worked on rehearsals. Do you guys remember how long we worked? 4 weeks?
4 weeks? Was it 4 weeks?
Yeah, we worked 4 weeks, and it was a lot. But Maya and Kathleen really helped me to not get lost in those emotions and to remember that I'm not in that situation anymore. And so we worked quite a bit on that. Yeah. So we did a lot of breathing and understanding how to get out of those situations and understanding her more, and just, yeah.
And Violet, could you tell us a little bit about, I know that there's a special story about the lullaby that you sing.
Yeah, so my mom just had a baby 2 months ago, I think. Yeah, 2 months ago. And his name's Zion, and I don't know, he falls asleep to Fawn Wood's song, Mommy's Little Guy. and he'll fall asleep and stay asleep until he's hungry. And it's just really cute because my mom didn't really play it that much when he was in her tummy. And I don't know how he just knows that it's like his favorite song. But yeah, that's the connection to that.
That's so amazing. It's really so sweet to hear that there's real life connection, and also that the story, the work that you did was so uplifting. It sounds like, in terms of the preparatory work that you did. I'm going to throw it back to Maya and Kathleen. If you could talk a little bit about that intentional process that you created for rehearsal and then shooting, because maybe you can tell us a little bit about the process that you actually engaged in, which is very unusual, shooting in real time. So Maya, can you start, and then I'll jump over to Kathleen.
Sure. So we weren't necessarily sure what real time meant when we started. We just we knew that the film would take place over a couple hours with these two women, but we weren't sure what that would actually look like in terms of our technical shooting style, and ultimately decided to do this continuous take. So maybe I'll talk about the rehearsal, and Kathleen, do you want to talk about the actual shooting process? So I was an actor first and foremost, and I've done a fair amount of theater, and I really appreciate the process of theater in terms of rehearsing, because often you get 3 or 4 weeks, sometimes more, to really work with the material, work with the other actors, the director, and the script. And given that Violet had never acted before, we wanted to give her the opportunity to really get to the heart of the story and her character. And when film is shot, conventionally, it's often shot completely out of chronological order based on location availability and other sort of scheduling things. And so with an emotionally challenging role like Rosie's, we wanted to be able to give Violet the opportunity to have the most authentic, natural experience and performance possible. And we figured that spending 4 weeks together in a rehearsal space would provide that opportunity. And I think it really worked out. And it also gave us time to build trust and build a toolkit for working in a way that wasn't re-traumatizing or doing any sort of harm, especially given that Violet's a first-time actor. She was only 17 when we shot the film, and like Violet said, she's had these personal experiences that are similar to Rosie's. So we wanted to do our best to take care of her and take care of the project as a whole in spending that time together.
Fantastic, thank you. And Kathleen, can you talk a little bit about the technical side of shooting in real time and the aesthetic choices that you and Maya crafted together, and how that worked?
Yeah, sure. So we worked really closely with our cinematographer, Norm Lee, who's really wonderful. So we owe a lot to him in terms of actually allowing us to pull this off, because it was quite a feat. We wanted to shoot on 16 millimeter. We felt like it was the right aesthetic for this film. But the challenge with that is that a 16 millimeter film magazine only lasts for 11 minutes. So we had this sort of dilemma of how do we shoot a continuous take when we have only 11-minute mags. So he came up with this technique he calls real-time transitioning, where we had 2 cameras. He would film until we sort of planned out these choreographed stitch points where we could have a transition, so the actors were able to continue their performance in the way that we wanted, as Maya said, to have this like very immersive theatrical experience for the actors. But Norm would have to, he would make the movement, get past another camera that was already pre-rolling, repeat that motion. So he sort of had about a 10-second repeated action, and the actors continued and he picked them up. And so we sort of leapfrogged the cameras from location to location in this way, and it was quite dramatic and exciting and scary, and it took a lot of preparation and work in the pre-production period to pull it off. And then I guess the other aesthetic choice was just shooting with this sort of blue cast to the whole film, which we felt really suited Vancouver. We wanted to really capture the tone of Vancouver, and so we used tungsten film in daylight, so it was uncorrected. So it just gives it this sort of really nice blue tinge to it. Yeah.
And then also like the production design kind of accentuated stuff as well.
Yeah, and so we were really careful about using color and also costume set design. Violet already had this very beautiful blue hair when we met her, so we worked with that, and
the tie-dyed hoodie.
Tie-dyed hoodie was inspired by her day-to-day wear. So yeah, it was really fun putting those pieces together. And Isla's apartment is quite. We're just so pleased with the production design and the detail they took in creating these spaces, because space was really important for us in terms of how different spaces feel and what the spaces say about the characters that live in them.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'd love to move around to the collaboration and the tone or the atmosphere you created in the production, and the steps you took to be inclusive or to change things in the way production is normally done, if you will, because I know that's an important aspect of this film that is really unique. Can you start talking about it, Kathleen? Then we'll throw it over to Tyler and Laurie in terms of how you actually were able to pull it off, and what was the pushback, or what was the buy-in?
Yeah, so it was really important, I think, for all of us from the get-go that we create a safe space for our cast and our crew and everyone involved in the film. We also wanted to try and sort of build capacity within the industry in terms of Indigenous crew. We felt like, we really wanted to have as many Indigenous crew on set as possible, but this town is incredibly busy and it's hard to fill all those roles all the time. So one thing we did to counteract that was to create this mentorship program with Indigenous youth, young people who they weren't that young. We always say youth, but they ranged from 16 to I think probably 30.
Yep.
And so we had sort of mentorships with each key creative. So there was 11 young people on set, and they were sort of partnered with like a cinematographer, director, costume designer. And the idea was to create not sort of this apprenticeship model, but more of like a peer-to-peer relationship between the mentor and the mentee. So that was one thing. And maybe Maya or Laurie or Tyler can fill in
Maya, can you add to that?
About the mentorship? What else can I add? Yeah, I mean, the intention was to help build capacity in the industry in terms of key technical positions for Indigenous people working behind the camera, because I think, well, there obviously aren't enough, and it certainly influences what happens in front of the camera when you actually have Indigenous people behind the camera. And it was also an opportunity for us to build community and build almost a sense of family in terms of the work. And it kept us grounded and rooted in the fact that this story came from a very real place and had certainly a lot of importance and meaning. And so coming to set every day and working with these young people was a consistent reminder that, we had to do our best to do this story justice. And it brought so much joy, I think, every day to the set to have to have these young people and their energy and enthusiasm for working on this film. You know, so often we can get like a little bit like caught up in the work and our heads get a little bit buried in the sand. And to have these young people, you know, working on their first sort of big film, even though it wasn't really a big film, but for me it was a big film. But yeah, to have them on set for their, you know, first big film sort of experience was really cool, just sort of to witness that and to be around that type of energy. And also was really inspiring. Like I feel like I learned so much from these young people. We each had our own mentees that we worked with, and Jade Baxter is this really talented filmmaker herself, and she was our directing mentee, and it was just like such an incredible experience to have this whip smart, passionate young woman there, like every day to remind us she kept us on our toes.
Yeah, and just to add to the idea of responsibility, I guess we had a lot of non-Indigenous crew that were the mentors, including myself, to be a settler, mentoring a young Indigenous filmmaker who's so brilliant. It does add a level of responsibility, and we also felt in order to sort of make sure that it was a safe space, the other thing we did was bring in someone to host sort of a 101 history 101 Indigenous Canadian. What's the best way to say that, Ty?
Well, it was Sarah Robinson, who runs a company called Rainwatch, and she now has a video, I think, version of this similar workshop to what we did, which you can buy from her website. But it was just, yeah, like a really amazing kind of like half-day workshop that was compulsory for all crew to take, which was kind of, yeah, like a Indigenous history workshop, but also kind of like a cultural competency type of thing. And I think the thing that was really effective about it was that it was basically kind of like called everybody in and provided education for people rather than something where that's framed in a more negative sense, where you're kind of telling people that they don't know anything and that they need to be better, which is in many cases very true, but people may not respond to that well. So yeah, it was a really great thing to do for a production that really set the tone for the entire crew, and helped us kind of create as safe a space as possible for everybody involved, especially those Indigenous youth who are on set every day. So we really, really wanted to create that safe space for them, because the last thing we wanted to do was like kind of bring these people in, give them this opportunity on a film set, and then have them have like a really horrible experience of racism or sexism or anything else like that. So that was kind of one of the things we did to really set the groundwork for the whole crew. And I think what we the response we got from the crew, many of whom were not Indigenous or otherwise, or were like a lot of white folks, was that it was actually a really powerful workshop that really kind of made them connect with the story more, and really understand why this story was so important, because the workshop wasn't just specifically about general Indigenous history. It was also talking about violence against women and other kind of topics that come up in the film. So I think it was a super productive thing to do.
Thank you. That's really so powerful to know that that's a process that you fully engaged as a team, and that your crew, your cast, and your crew all, everyone was on board and actually part of that process. Violet, you and I had an earlier conversation about this very thing, and I wonder if you could share a little bit about what it was like to be on a set where you're experiencing this kind of inclusivity or this kind of leadership. What was that like for you?
Could you rephrase the question?
Oh, certainly. You and I talked about what it was like to be on set on this movie, and what it was like to have to be be carrying this very powerful story, but to have the support of Maya and Kathleen, but also the people that were there supporting the project, that were like a community. Can you speak about that a little bit, how that felt?
Um, I don't know how to
Yeah,
answer.
I just
I'm
I just wanted you to share a little bit about that, that you shared with me before, in terms of just making friends on set, and making and building that for yourself as a performer, as somebody who's part of the team, that you made friendships. Is that something that happened for you?
Yeah, I made quite a few friends, and even my mom did too, because she was on set like every day. So she like became really, really close to Jacoby. And she was what's the proper title for, is it wardrobe? Wardrobe, right? Yeah, she was in wardrobe. And my mom and I became really close to Jacoby, to the point where my mom's like, "Love you, Jacoby," and Jacoby's like, "Love you too."
Aw.
And yeah, she's like really close with my mom and I. And yeah, there's quite a few people that I'm still in contact with. And I'm glad that I got to make those types of friendships. And yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I also wanted to ask you, and then I'll jump over to Maya and Kathleen about this, how it felt to have two directors leading the film. What was that like, working with two directors? Normally there's only one. So what was that like for you, Violet?
Well, it like, because it was my first time, I didn't really like understand that there was not going to be two directors. So it wasn't that complicated, I guess. Like, I mean, if like I did do acting before this film, I'd probably be like, whoa, this is like different. But because it was my first time, it was just something that I just absorbed. And yeah, just kind of just felt normal for them both to be like, you should like try this one out and do this. And yeah.
Fantastic. And I'll just go over to Maya and Kathleen. There's a question that has come up about co-directing. It seems like it could be really challenging at times because, as I was saying, normally there's only one director, there's a single vision, that sort of thing. How did you navigate merging two individual visions into one beautiful vision that this film has resulted in? How did you navigate that, Maya?
I think that's it exactly. It's that it was our, our combined visions that made the film what it is. It was certainly challenging at times, but I think it was such an incredible experience to work with Kathleen. And I don't think there was anything conventional about our process. And so, because everything felt so unconventional, it 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 guided us in this sort of bizarre sense that we just kind of understood that every obstacle or barrier was just kind of like a natural part of our process. Everything from the start, when we did a workshop with young Indigenous women who had been through foster care. We did a script workshop with them. And our intention from the start was to ensure that this project was not replicating extractive forms of filmmaking, which often happens when we're putting marginalized voices on screen through the lens of coming from the lens of people who do not come from that community. And I'm Indigenous, but I didn't grow up in foster care. I grew up in a home where I had both parents, and the same goes for Kathleen. And so we thought it was really important to honor that, and to make sure that the voices of young Indigenous women who have had that experience were part of helping us craft the the script. So we introduced, I think it was at least our like third or fourth draft to them, and that was a wonderful experience. So every step of the way, we were continually reminding ourselves and I guess interrogating ourselves in terms of how can we do this in a way that is different, and in a way that is grounded in community and reciprocity. And so in terms of our co-directing, a lot of the work happened in pre-production. Like Kathleen said, we had 4 weeks of rehearsal. Our producers, Lori and Tyler, were so incredibly supportive of our sometimes just like outlandish, bizarre vision. And yeah, we had, I think, 5 full days of rehearsal with our crew as well before we went to camera, because we had to choreograph absolutely everything. Yeah, I don't know, Kathleen, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I guess just in terms of co-directing and what really helps to make things sort of work, I think is just putting the project first and making, I mean, there's going to be, inevitably you're going to disagree on things, or there's going to be, you know, tough days. But I think as long as you're taking care to give the project the weight that it deserves, and making sure that your choices are really not about, you know, ego and what you want, but more about what's best for the work and what's going to make the best film, and make things sort of move along for the crew. Because I think that's part of the pressure of directing, is just you're balancing not only the story, but you're sort of trying to keep the whole ship afloat and moving forward. And yeah, so it was a lot of conversation, a lot of talking and discussions, and saying, what do you think about this? What do you think? Is this the right choice? And trying things and undoing things. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you, Fing. That's fantastic. I want to know if you had pushback from agencies or funders when you proposed the project and the way you were going to actually work. What kind of support or not did you receive from the industry? Can either Tyler or Lori talk? Maybe Lori, can you just speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, everybody loved it and just threw money at us. No, they didn't. No, I mean, this is, again, it's a story that resonates with people, like right off, like it was easy to talk with folks about, you know, the story that we wanted to do. Obviously the most challenging part about trying to gather the funding was, you know, what was this continuous performance, and what are you going to do if it doesn't work? And it's always that stuff, you know, and it's like, but, you know, for the most part, you know, we had our challenges, but like the International Sami Film Institute was the first to come on board with development funding. And then, you know, Harold Greenberg and, you know, Telefilm. And then, you know, we were making this in Norway co-production. So, you know, finding a Norwegian partner that we found through a producer that had contacted Maya about another project, and they were wonderful to work with. And, you know, we had some blips in the road too. You know, there's a financing that we applied for that we didn't receive, and so we had a bit of a shortfall. And, you know, I think probably the biggest concern for our funding partners were just like, with the continuous performance, what are you going to do if it doesn't work? And so, you know, in terms of producing, that was not remotely a concern of Tyler and mine. You know, like I come from a bit of a theater background too. So, and the thought of like 4 weeks of rehearsal and doing something new. And then of course, when Norm suggested film, I was like, that's going to be interesting to figure out. But again, like you know, I'm a bit of a cinephile, and I love film, and I love the tone that shooting on film creates also for the crew and on set. Like that's another factor. When you shoot on film, there is it feels like there's another level of care and concern and love of it. So yeah, like, you know, we've had some blips, and it's kind of like with distribution too. Like we were incredibly fortunate to have our world premiere in Berlin in a beautiful environment. And then, you know, we're rejected by a lot of sales agents, you know, internationally, because they didn't know who would watch this movie. So that's still a piss off, frankly, to me. And I hope we've shown a little bit different. And, you know, eventually, and the thing is, life kind of works out the way it's supposed to sometimes a little bit, because we found the exact partner that we needed, and we all came together at exactly the right time. So, and that was, of course, Array and the amazing Ava DuVernay and her team at Array, Telaine Jones, who is someone that Tyler and I talk with weekly or email weekly with. But what we loved so much about that was, like, you know, Tyler and I are very used to working with distributors ourselves as producers, right? But what was so different about Ava and her company was she was very focused on what Maya and Kathleen wanted the film to do. So if Kathleen and Maya want to talk a little bit about the experience with Array, I think it's a game changer, and I'm really I want more distributors to behave this way, frankly.
Yes, and Maya, could you speak about the relationship with Ava DuVernay and Array?
Sure. Like Lori said, it was a game changer, totally unexpected, because we'd received so many rejections from sales agents and distributors outside of Canada. We, of course, had Level Film here in Canada, and they're a wonderful company. But again, people didn't know what to do with this film outside of Canada. A lot of people said, "Oh, it's it's a great story. We understand it's important, but who's going to watch it," sort of thing. And then through Bird Running Water at the Sundance Institute and the Indigenous program, the film was placed in front of Ava DuVernay and Telaine Jones at Array, and they accepted the film. They decided to take it up for distribution, and it was a life-changing, mind-blowing moment. I think we were all basically in tears, because it just felt so validating to have someone like Ava DuVernay championing this film, and she's absolutely changing the industry in so many ways. And one of her guiding principles is to champion the voices of marginalized people, of people of color, of women of all kinds, and it just felt like a wonderful fit. And further to that, they've done such a wonderful job with building an educational toolkit. So they, despite being a very rapidly growing company, they still work in a very sort of grassroots, community-oriented way. And so they've been wonderful at finding different audiences, at finding new audiences, and facilitating really important community dialogue. And so they've worked very hard on helping develop an educational toolkit that can be used for these kinds of grassroots and community type screenings. So yeah, I there really aren't enough words to share how it feels to be supported by a company like that.
And I'll actually just jump in just to also say that, we also had a lot of support from CBC on this project, and that the film is currently on CBC Gem, and you can watch it there if you're not able to watch it through the film festival itself. But there was also, like a lot of kind of robust support from CBC to try and take this artistic, challenge, I guess, of creating a real-time film. And there was definitely questions that were had, but ultimately there was a ton of support for the artistic vision of Kathleen and Amaya. So I just want to give a little shout out there too. CBC Gem.
Fantastic. I am so conscious of our time, and I have a couple more performing questions. One is, Maya, do you think you could have given the beautiful performance that you gave if you hadn't had Kathleen as your co-director? How do you think that having had a co-director impacted your performance?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wasn't sure that I wanted to play Isla to begin with, but then the others kind of convinced me to do so, because I wanted to be able to simply direct. But I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to play Isla. And working with Kathleen and working with Violet certainly brought a level of nuance and authenticity to the performance that I don't think I've necessarily experienced on a film set before. It was really wonderful to be able to marry the process of theater with film. And Kathleen has a great intuition in terms of working with actors and then spending that time together, really working with the script. Even though we wrote it, there were new discoveries made every day in the rehearsal process. And then, of course, yeah, working with Violet was amazing.
So again, thinking about the time, I recognize that we have to wrap up soon. But before we do that, I have to do a little special something. I have a bit of a surprise for you all. We're going to cut away to a short video from one of the Gimli Film Festival partners at APTN. So could we play the clip, please? Oh, we have it. There we go. It's muted. Sorry, could we? Oh, there we go.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Danielle Odette. I am the Acting Executive Director of Programming and Scheduling at APTN. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. For this award, it was the goal of APTN and the Gimli Film Festival to not only give recognition to a deserving Indigenous filmmaker, but to also bring awareness to important topics that relate to Indigenous cultures and heritage, to give a deeper understanding as we move towards the path of reconciliation. The winner of this award has crafted a story about privilege and its lack, motherhood and its absence, submission, and the power of intervention. In this film, two Indigenous women from two vastly different circumstances form an unexpected bond and deal with the consequences of domestic abuse. Indigenous people in Canada are disproportionately overrepresented in nearly all risk groups associated with abuse. My hope is, or our hope is, that this award will encourage more Manitobans and Canadians to incorporate Indigenous perspectives into their artistic expressions. We stand with survivors. This year's Indigenous Spirit Award goes to The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, directed by Elmaya Telfeathers and Kathleen Hepburn. Congratulations.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I have to interrupt this moment with an additional announcement. It's my incredible honor to announce that The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open has also been awarded the Gimli Film Festival Grand Jury Prize, the highest award of the festival. And this is an incredibly well-deserved honor. And so I want to congratulate you all on that prize as well. And invite you to say a couple words as we part in 3 minutes.
Wow.
So Maya, over to you, Maya. A grand takeaway.
I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. What an honor. Obviously, that was totally unexpected. Thank you. I'm really moved, especially by the words from Danielle at APTN. It's an incredible feeling to be here on my homelands and looking out on this beautiful territory that my people have been on since time immemorial, and to know that stories like ours mean something to a broader audience, that people are willing to listen, and that people are willing to change. And yeah, it's a wonderful recognition. Thank you so much to the Gimli Festival and also to APTN for that award. I'm sorry. I don't really know what to say. I was kind of taken off guard. Kathleen, do you have anything to say?
Just thank you to Gimli and APTN, and it's such an honor, and we're just, you know, so thrilled that this film continues to touch people, and yeah, and thank you to Maya again, as always, for asking me to be a part of this project, and Violet, and just the whole team. We're so lucky to have this family, and to share in this experience together. So thank you.
Tyler?
Mute.
No, I mean, I think we probably only have a minute left. So I think these guys have really said it. And I would just echo the big thanks to Violet for everything she's brought to this project, because she is spectacular.
Yay. Thank you. And Violet, do you have anything you'd like to say? A big takeaway? Are you going to continue acting?
Yes, and I have been. I am in a short film called Rules for Werewolves with Finn Wolfhard and Kelsey Moima, and I'm also in Night Raiders with Maya. Yeah. Also,
Janice Goulet's latest, her feature film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Violet. Laurie, do you have anything that you'd like to share, take away, or something, a piece of advice for our viewers?
No, I'm just, I'm just incredibly grateful, and thank you to APTN for that beautiful award and beautiful intro, and to the Gimli Film Festival. I mean, again, I think, this is totally lame and cheesy, but like a little bit of like field dreams make it and they will come. So don't give up. Just don't give up when people tell you that people are not going to watch this movie. They will, So, yeah.
Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone. I just have a little housekeeping that I need to do for the festival. I want to say thank you to the panel. Beautiful, beautiful work. It's being recognized around the world. And I'm so honored to be part of this conversation today.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your wonderful preparation and our talks and everything and hosting. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And the pleasure of Women in the Director's Chair to be behind you all as well. And so please, everyone, stick around for the next event, which is in conversation with Tim Heidecker and Greg Turkington, moderated by local hero Guy Madden. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Take care, and please stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.